say these are specially approved by Michelle. Because she knows all of you have been working so hard. You've been moving, so you're allowed to have a little treat.
Either this crowd likes you or they like donuts. Yeah, Jennifer, you want to start handing it to me and then I'll introduce? Oh, and let's take the mic. You guys, you may not need this, but we are Facebooking live, and so Jennifer Wexton.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for coming out today in the rain. I'm Jennifer Wexton, and I'm going to repeal and replace Barbara Comstock. So you have to excuse me because I'm still a little bit odd right now to be standing next to Tim Kaine. And President Obama, who of course is the person who inspired me to run for office in the first place. And I have really said since day one that my campaign is not about gloom and doom. My campaign is about hope and change, and that's what we need to get back to in this country. And I think we will. I think we will come tomorrow, and I think that Virginia is once again going to set an example for the country in a very, very good way. But we're not done yet. There are still doors that need to be knocked. There are still voters that need to be reminded just how important this election is. So I'm so thankful for everything you guys have done, and so thankful to be sharing the ticket with America's dad, Senator Tim Kaine.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jennifer. Isn't she going to be fantastic in Congress? I mean, she will be absolutely a rock star. Give her a big round of applause. Jennifer, this is so cool to be here with a wonderful friend, somebody we so admire. Just a few words before I hand it over to the president. He is trying to rest his voice a little, as you'll hear. He has been working so hard for so many candidates. But to be with all of you, I am accompanied by my fantastic wife, Ann, who's a great public servant. My mother, Kathy Kaine, and my dad, Al Kaine. Some of you know that my mom and my maternal grandparents and the president's mom and his maternal grandparents are from El Dorado, Kansas. When we first met in 2004 and we realized that we had that El Dorado connection, I mean, it's pretty much been a bond ever since. I'm also just thrilled to have the best campaign manager in the biz, Corinne Charles Dungo. And my son, Nat, is here somewhere out in the hall. And I just want to say, if you just show your face quick, Mr. President, of the many things I have to thank you about, your 2012 campaign introduced Nat to his now wife, Carly. They probably wouldn't have met had it not been for you. And we love our daughter-in-law, so we want to thank you for that. Lots going on. We hope to see a blue wave tomorrow night in Virginia and elsewhere. But even more than a blue wave, what this nation needs right now, what this world needs from us right now, is a wave of compassion, a wave of character, a wave of decency, love, community, caring, a wave of righteousness, a wave of justice. That's what's on the ballot tomorrow night. Jennifer needs to win. I need to win. But we got to send a message to every corner of this country in every part of this world that we are a nation of character and decency and compassion. Now, you guys know how to lead. The president knows this story so well. We fought hard in Virginia. We fought hard, sometimes feeling like we're playing catch-up. But in 2008, this guy said, well, no Dem has won Virginia for 44 years. But, you know, I'm Mr. Vegas. I'm a risk taker. Why don't I invest in Virginia? And for the first time in a very long time, a Democratic presidential candidate said, I believe in you guys when people in the past haven't. I believe in you. And he and his campaign invested heavily in Virginia. And I know that everyone here remembers to the microsecond exactly where they were standing on election night in 2008. And what happened was, you'll remember this, in a 5-minute sequence, AP called Virginia for President Obama, then AP called the United States for President Obama. When Virginia leads, Virginia wins. When Virginia wins, America wins. Here's the guy who believed in us when a lot of folks hadn't, who made us so proud as president and makes us so proud today, my dear, dear friend, President Barack Obama.
Hello, everybody. So, that's it. Stop. I know I brought donuts, but first of all, I am so excited to be campaigning and helping out Jennifer, who is part of this wave of remarkable candidates that we're seeing all across the country. You know, we're seeing a record number of women who are running. And Lord knows we need more women in charge. We're seeing veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan running. We are seeing people who didn't start off saying to themselves, I want to be a politician, but rather started off saying, I want to serve, or I believe deeply in something, and then are stepping into the arena. And I should also add that as a former state senator, I cannot imagine a better training to be an outstanding public servant than to be a state senator. So I hope everybody's going to be out there working really hard for Jennifer in the weeks to come. Second point is Tim's got it backwards when he says that I made a bet on Virginia. What happened in 2008 was me, a new senator, presumptuous enough to think maybe that I might run for president, announced, and Tim Kaine, a new governor, decides, against all political wisdom and against all odds, to be the first significant elected official outside of my home state of Illinois to endorse my candidacy for president. He didn't have to do it. I'm sure there were those who advised him not to do it. And so very early in my campaign, we stood in what had been the heart of the Confederacy. And Tim Kaine, a new governor, announced that he would support my candidacy to be the first African-American president of the United States. And so it was Tim's courage, undoubtedly spurred by Aunt, and the history of her family as incredible advocates, by the way, from another party, advocates on behalf of civil rights, that I was able to get a head start in Virginia. So I tell that story because when Tim Kaine talks about decency and compassion and doing what you believe is right, even if it's not always politically expedient, he is somebody who I have witnessed do that time and time again. And that is why I am so proud not just to support him for an election, because that's part of my job. I'm proud to call him a friend, somebody who I deeply respect, and somebody that Virginia is really lucky to have as its senator. So go out there and make sure you're working hard for Tim Kaine going forward. Last point I'm going to make. You agree with me, Mom, about what I said? Okay. It's those Kansas roots. Last thing I want to say, so you guys can then get to the donuts. Part of the reason I wanted to come here was because I'm looking at all of you, and you remind me of me when I was your age. And I'll bet Tim would say the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know, when I got out of college, I'd been kind of a goof-off up until about my junior year. And for some reason, I then kind of looked around and I realized, you know what, I shouldn't just live my life for me. It seems like the people I respect live their lives for some larger purpose. I didn't know yet exactly what that purpose would be. I didn't know exactly what that path would be, but I knew that I had to stop thinking it was always just about me. I had to figure out, how do I hitch my wagon to something larger than myself? And so I got out of college and I'm looking around, and somehow I got this idea in my head that I'd be a community organizer, even though I didn't really know what that meant. But I knew I wanted to work in low-income neighborhoods, just like Tim decided he wanted to go and work in poor communities in Latin America. I think we were both compelled by this sense, you know, we've been given so much. We have such wonderful parents, and we have the benefits of this extraordinary education, and we've been born in this country in which folks of relatively modest means and obscurity can aspire to something bigger. We should use that to give back something. And so we were out there. I was out there, and half the time I didn't know what I was doing. And the people I was working with gave me probably more than I was able to give them. And I grew up, and I became a man, and I started feeling more responsible for the world around me, and whatever modest influence I had, I felt I had to use that to help a child get a better education, or help a poor family get better housing, or in some ways make this country a little bit more just, and a little bit more generous, and a little bit more kind, and a little bit more tolerant, and make sure that the best animating spirit of this country showed itself in our public lives. And that is what I carried with me all the way through my years as a state senator. That's what I carried with me when I got to the U.S. Senate. That's what I decided I was going to put a bet on when I ran in 2008. And I remember that first race we had in Iowa was based on these young people who were coming from all different walks of life, and were suddenly in farmland in Iowa, and some of them had grown up there, but some of them were coming from Brooklyn and L.A., and they were from all different backgrounds, and suddenly they're talking to farmers and trying to convince them to vote for this guy whose name nobody could pronounce. And I watched them day after day, week after week, month after month, invest in something, and it was like I'd come full circle, because in them I saw myself. And in my campaign I saw what young people can do when they put their minds to it. And so the day before a campaign, or the day before an election, when I get a chance to see folks like you, young people who are showing for the first time what you can do with your voice. And then to have some people who are young at heart that you're joining up with, who are excited for the first time in a long time and are investing in, making their country better. What's more inspiring than that? What's better than that? So, Tim mentioned what's at stake in this election. Look, healthcare is on the ballot. Jennifer's talked about this. Healthcare, millions of people. You vote, you might save a life. That's pretty rare where that happens. Making sure working families get a fair shot. That's on the ballot. But most importantly, the character of this country is on the ballot. Who we are is on the ballot. What kind of politics we expect is on the ballot. How we conduct ourselves in public life is on the ballot. How we treat other people is on the ballot. And the good news is that all across the country, what I'm seeing is this great awakening. People, I think, who had taken for granted that we had made certain strides, we had made certain progress, that, yeah, of course women are treated with respect. Of course we're not going to judge people based on their skin color, their last name. Of course we're going to expect basic decency and honesty and straight talk from folks in high office. Suddenly people woke up and said, oh, I guess we can't take this for granted. We've got to fight for this. We don't boo, vote. And in that great awakening, I feel hopeful. You guys make me feel hopeful. And I'll just close by saying this. I said this yesterday in some remarks I had back in Chicago, because it was 10 years ago yesterday that I won the presidency. And Michelle and I have talked about this. One of the only problems of that glorious night, and we knew it, we could feel it. I remember talking to Tim about it, because Tim was there since he had been there from the beginning. One of the only problems was we worried a little bit about expectations, because we despite the fact that I kept on saying, yes, we can, not yes, I can, there was a sense that, oh, okay, well, now, if this can happen, we're all good. And then it turned out, no, it's hard. There was pushback and backlash, and we were digging ourselves out of a big economic crisis that had been prompted by some of the same policies that we're now seeing this Congress pursue. And so we worried a little bit that maybe folks just kind of just let go and said, okay, he'll handle it. And then folks get disillusioned and they feel like, okay, everything didn't completely transform itself. So maybe hope's overrated, and now we've got to be mean and cynical, and maybe we just don't vote at all. And what I said yesterday was, look, just so you guys aren't confused, because I want you guys to be in this for the long haul. It's a long race, making the world better. One election is not going to change everything. Just because Jennifer's in Congress or Tim's back in the Senate doesn't mean suddenly that there's no poverty in America. It doesn't mean that suddenly we're getting all the gun violence out of our schools or our places of worship. It doesn't mean that everybody who desperately needs a job is going to find one right away. It doesn't mean that suddenly climate change is solved. But what it does mean is things start getting better. And better is really important. Better is really good, because if you get if you just get that one family health care, and maybe they don't have to sell their house to make sure a family member's okay. You don't know what that might lead to. That family could do amazing things. You get one guy who doesn't have a job, who suddenly, because of Tim's work or Jennifer's work, gets in a training program and gets a trade, and then comes back home and tells his kids, you know what, I got a job. And the kids suddenly see their dad with a sense of purpose and dignity from work. And those kids do better in school because of it. And then they launch careers, and they're raising families, and suddenly a whole generation's better just from one election. And you get enough of those things, and you kind of hit a tipping point where suddenly everything gets a little better. Everything feels a little better. People feel a little less angry. People don't turn on each other quite as much. People start thinking, you know what, let me treat somebody the way I want to be treated. And suddenly our public discourse, how we talk to each other, gets a little better. Better's good. Better's important. Better's a start. That's what you're doing. You're going out there, you're going to make sure that people vote to start making things better. And when you do that, then the spirit of America is going to shine. All right? Let's get to work. We're going to vote for Jennifer. We're going to vote for Tim. Let's make sure everybody else does too. Love you guys.
Everybody stand up. You guys all stand up, and we'll turn around and then take All right. All right.
Here's the thing, though, guys. I will not take individual selfies. I'll never get out of here. So you guys just gotta let me shake some hands, take pictures while, you know.
I know how much you hate selfies.
I do. I'm just like a down on selfies.
Hi, I've never been to Chicago. I live
To see a home girl.
Thanks. Hi, President Obama, I just want to say,
Oh my God!
Thank you so much. We work with TK, and he's the best. And we're so proud to have him and you.
Hi, President Obama. I'm Justin. I work for Jennifer. I've been here for the very beginning, and I'm in this for exactly the reason you described.